Imagine a nation staring down the barrel of its own shrinking footprint. This is the startling reality unfolding in the UK today. Last week's figures from the Office for National Statistics, ONS, revealed that the fertility rate in England and Wales has plunged to 1.41 children per woman in 2024, marking a 3-year decline and the lowest level since records began nearly a century ago. But here's where it gets controversial. Experts agree that a rate of around 2.1 is needed simply to keep the population stable, which means Britain's headcount is poised to shrink unless something changes. And this is the part most people miss. This demographic shift cuts right to the heart of two searing political debates. On one side stand voices calling for a halt to immigration, arguing that the UK is already bursting at the seams. On the other side are those who warn that without an influx of younger people, either homegrown or arriving from abroad, the economy will stall. This tug of war has the Labour government under Keir Starmer caught in the crossfire, as it juggles protests over immigration and the sluggish economy. Even Elon Musk waded into the fray on social media, declaring that low birth rate is the #1 threat to the West, followed closely by migration. That sweeping claim only underscores how emotionally and politically charged this subject has become. Why are fewer babies being born? The ONS report points to a clear trend. People are delaying parenthood. The average mother is now 31 years old, up from 29 2 decades ago. And dads are nearly 34, compared with 32.1 back in 2004. Rising housing costs, the looming childcare fees, and job market uncertainty all play a part. Businesses fret over potential tax hikes and already higher employer national insurance contributions, making them cautious about expanding their workforces. What happens to public finances in the short term? Surprisingly, a dip in birth numbers can ease the strain on government budgets. As Simon French, chief economist at Panmure Gordon, explains, children under 16 are a net drain on the economy, requiring services, childcare and education funding. Paul Dales from Capital Economics adds that schools and the NHS may breathe easier over the next 15 to 20 years, and adults aged 20 to 40 might even find a bit more cash in their pockets. But fast forward to the long term, and the outlook darkens. With fewer youngsters entering the workforce, overall economic growth slows. People are also living longer, so a smaller share of the population is working while more are retired, stretching public finances to the breaking point. French warns that our current systems were designed for the post-war baby boom, when a surge of workers pumped income tax into the state. Here's a sobering fact. In 2020, there were 280 pensioners for every 1,000 working-age adults in the UK. By 2070, that number is projected to soar to 393 per 1,000. Because state pensions are paid out of today's workers' national insurance contributions, rather than being pre-funded, fewer workers could mean heavier tax burdens and bigger borrowing to meet pension obligations. Why does this matter for economic growth? At its simplest, more people usually mean a bigger economy, and fewer people a smaller one. Some analysts argue that per-person measures, GDP per capita, matter more, since many Britons feel their living standards are flatlined. Yet Philip Shaw of Investec warns that if the working to non-working ratio keeps falling, public services and tax policies will face relentless pressure. How does Britain compare internationally? Britain's 1.41 fertility rate sits below France's 1.64 and the US's 1.62, but is in line with several other developed nations. By contrast, countries like Afghanistan, 4.66, and Chad, 5.94, lead the pack, according to CIA data. So what can be done? There's no silver bullet. Some argue for higher taxes or more borrowing to cover rising costs. Others point to immigration from younger populations as a quick fix. Yet anti-immigration protests are swelling, and the government has just paused a refugee family reunion scheme amid rising far-right sentiment. Pro-immigration voices say newcomers will replenish the workforce. Anti-immigration groups like Reform UK, led by Nigel Farage, counter that migrants drive crime and social strain, despite ONS data showing household crime rates have fallen over the past decade. Instead, they advocate for boosting birth rates at home by scrapping the two-child benefit cap and offering steeper tax breaks to married couples. There's a profound tension here. Should Britain accept more people to prop up public finances, or focus on convincing its own citizens to have more children despite the high cost of living? Unless an AI-driven productivity miracle arrives, hard choices lie ahead. Now we want to hear from you. Do you believe immigration is the key to Britain's economic future? Or should the government pour resources into encouraging larger families? Could innovative workplace policies or housing reforms shift the needle on birth rates? Share your thoughts below. Let's turn this demographic dilemma into a national conversation.